Hello again. Next up, we have a panel discussion on commerce media, which will be moderated and introduced to you by Alistair Burton. Alistair is the Managing Director at Criteo for the Middle East, Africa, and Turkey regions. He is responsible for building the commercial business and teams across the region. A passionate and commercially minded marketer with over 18 years experience within ad tech, digital and traditional marketing, media, advertising, and digital product development across UK, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, as well as Turkey, having worked client-side, agency-side, publisher-side, and with various technologies in between. Excited by tomorrow in a world where consumer and media trends are continually being redefined. Welcome, Alistair.
Thank you so much, Adam, for that introduction. Very, very long-winded, but I appreciate that so much. So a big welcome to everyone joining us here today. Today we're going to be talking about commerce marketing. I'm very intrigued to know, out of all the viewers and the people watching, what the understanding is, how many people are using it. So that's what we're going to try and do today. We're going to try and break down these questions. What is commerce marketing? What is the benefits? And why are we talking about it? So before we get into the details, let's introduce the wider panelists. Some incredible guests. I spoke to them a couple of times in the past week. We had some very interesting and exciting conversations. So they come with a huge amount of experience. I'm very interested for them to share this directly with yourselves. So let's go through some introductions. So first of all, if the panelists want to introduce themselves and a little bit of background on themselves. So Dirk, do you want to start us off?
Good afternoon, Alistair. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, my name is Dirk van der Walt. I am one of the co-founders of WeBuyCars. WeBuyCars has been in existence and operating in South Africa for the last 20 years. And we're doing some work to sort of change the focus of the auto industry and renew the mindset. That's what we do.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that, Dirk, in a moment. George, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Alistair, and thanks for the intro, and thanks for today. I've been watching keenly, albeit in my house. I've got the conference playing in as many places as I can in the house, so that I can stay engaged. But my name is George Mienie. I'm CEO of AutoTrader. AutoTrader has been around in South Africa since about 1992. Started as a print business, if you heard my talk a little bit earlier, and we transitioned to being a digital business in about 2017 entirely. So the journey started in about 2007, 2008, but we officially shut the last magazines in 2017. So it was a good 10-year journey to become to digital transformation in South Africa. It took a lot longer than any other country, and our passion is to digitally transform the car buying journey. Which I think is quite an interesting one, given the size of the prize or the asset that consumers buy. It's the second biggest asset bought in a consumer's world.
Perfect, thank you, George. So end of an era. I also used to work in a publishing or a newspaper sector, so it's very interesting to see these things go full circle. And that a lot of this is the conversation around this today is the, as you said, digital development, how the reliance on digital to engage our audiences, and commerce media is one of those such trends that we're going to be touching on. And finally, I'm going to try and pronounce this name, so you're going to have to tell me how I do out of 10. Ewoudt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good day, everyone. Yeah, sorry, I'm just also trying to switch on my camera here, but in the meanwhile, let me start. Hi, everyone. I'm Ewoudt Cloete. I'm currently employed as the Senior Manager managing digital operations for Game SA and Game Africa. My background, very strong in digital agency side, digital marketing. I've worked at agencies such as Wonderman, South Africa, where I was head of social media. And I've also been privileged enough to be Chief Digital Officer at Avatar Agency. And like I said, I'm currently at Game, so where I look after all digital marketing, conversion. I work very closely with the e-commerce team to help them drive a seamless omni-channel experience for the brand.
Amazing. Thank you, Ewoudt. So before we get into the conversation itself, we're going to find out exactly what the title is of this is about commerce marketing. So I'm going to pass over to a colleague of mine, Joshua, who will tell us more about what commerce marketing is and why should we care about it. So Joshua, over to you. We have a short 10-minute presentation. We'll go into kind of commerce marketing, and we'll come back to the panel to discuss this as a group.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Alistair. Nice to be here, team. So let me just share my screen with everyone. Okay, great. So first of all, thank you again. Welcome. Just a quick, easy conversation today, just to chat a little bit about what commerce media is and the open internet. And thank you for joining. So we just want to go through what is commerce media, the means and the future of advertising. And let's move forward. So on today's landscape, trends and future of commerce, who are we? How do we fit in? What do you need to succeed? And the global success stories. First of all, what is commerce marketing? Commerce marketing utilizes commerce data and machine learning to target consumers throughout their shopping journey, greatly enhancing marketers' ability to drive particular outcomes like awareness, leads, and sales, online, in-app, and in-store. So basically, what does this mean? So we combine commerce media with artificial intelligence to reach predefined commerce company targets. How we actually analyze, improve, and hopefully predict the customer journey now and in the future, and what drives users to buy, and how marketers can use this information to achieve their goals. So the landscape. Let's look at some of the trends that we are currently looking at for the 2021 era. So first pillar of the four that we're going to go through is e-commerce is booming. E-commerce, 75% of US shoppers experienced a new shopping behavior during the pandemic. Also, 40% have tried a new brand, and 80% of them intend to continue using this brand. The second pillar of our trend today is first-party data. I know there's a lot about this in the industry at the moment, and how it unlocks huge potential. So Amazon, Walmart, and Walgreens all see explosive momentum opportunity outside walled gardens in open to all retailers who want to activate and monetize their own unique first-party data. One of the third pillars is the shift of trade marketing to online. So 92% of European and 76% of US brand advertisers say their growth depends on retail media, shifting trade and endemic consumer marketing dollars from less performant analog strategies into retail media. And our last but not least, fourth pillar of what's happening as a trend in the market is ad tech remains critical for marketers. So 34% of retailers see creating deeper partnerships with tech companies and media platforms as their largest opportunity now in 2021. So basically, these are the four larger trends shaping the future of commerce. But this also brings new opportunities for marketers. The new era, driving commerce outcomes. Furthermore, budgets are now coming together to create a new commerce opportunity, united by the need to drive commerce outcomes. New tools to watch out for in the future will be built and developed around platforms or environments that users and consumers are spending most of their time. So combining your offline and online data into one consolidated platform to drive commerce outcomes that transcend physical and digital experiences is a huge focus now and for the future. But so why are professionals now diversifying their budgets? So the answer to this is time. Many advertising budgets are focused on only 50% of where consumers are spending their time. So we see a huge misconception about where to reach a consumer online, as once they have moved from the browser and the search page, what is their intention beyond this point? And what is the probability of them converting if a larger chunk of time is spent on their destination found on the open internet? So basically, the open internet is where just as many consumers spend their time. 66% of these consumers are spending their time on the open internet, and 84% of these consumers also stated that it's the first place they discover new businesses. So we are seeing a huge trend in companies altering budgets and focusing on diversifying their approach with different products, audiences, algorithms, and platforms that add more to their current approach. While many entities advertise with the same inventory, the same tools, keywords, and find themselves creating bidding wars. So what is the real question? How do you segment yourself from the competition when we're all using the same strategy? Okay, great. So I've made my point. We need to diversify. But who are we anyway, and where do we fit in? Criteo, we are a global technology company that enables marketers and media owners to drive better commerce outcomes through our world-leading commerce media platform. That's who we are. But now, where do we fit in? We are leading the way of commerce media, a new approach to advertising that combines data and intelligence to target consumers through their shopping journey and help marketers and media owners drive commerce outcomes, whatever that goal is, whether it's sales, revenue, leads, it's the conversion point we focus on. We monitor over 2.5 billion active user device profiles in the market and oversee over $900 billion worth of transactions per year. We then combine this with our AI technology to create new possibilities of understanding what the customer journey looks like. So just to put that into perspective, we have access to 3 times more commerce data than Amazon. That's purchase and intent data, which is what matters when it comes to driving better commerce outcomes. So inevitably, the question is again, what does this consumer journey look like in our world today? How does it all work together? We start our journey with obviously the 3 fundamental pillars: awareness, consideration, and conversions. This is the most traditional aspect of every marketing fundamental understanding of during the sales funnel, utilizing many different tools and platforms to do so. But over the time, with advances in technology and global competition, we see companies focus their energy on and resources on managing what we like to call the loyalty loop, which is retention strategies and engagement tools, using their commerce data to provide insights on how to go about enhancing the consumer's experience in the full funnel realm. So if this is all going to work, and this is what our key focus is, what do you need to actually succeed? The 3 X factors: unique commerce data, expert AI, unique supply at scale. So unique commerce data, which includes more commerce data than any other ad tech company. Expert AI, which makes sure that we're putting the right ad in front of the right person at the right time, at their convenience, and we are advertising something that is relevant to them. The exchange of value is the most important moving on now and in the futures. And also establishing yourself with supply at scale. You are partnering with credible suppliers. You are partnering with suppliers who are conscious about brand safety and trust in the market. What are the outcomes? Great. So we understand many companies are focusing on commerce media, but what are the actual outcomes? So Fiat, the challenge. Fiat Turkey was in search of a new channel that would provide a cost-effective test drive form. This search created a need for cooperation with channels that could produce both dynamic creatives and retargeting solutions. So when Fiat utilized their commerce media, Fiat was able to generate new sustainable lead generation channels with dynamic retargeting, therefore lowering their lead cost by 97% versus average cost of all paid channels, and then lowering their sales cost by 91% versus average costs across all paid channels. Microsoft, what would the $1 trillion company need? Yeah.
Josh, let me just press pause on that because we're a bit tight on time. But thank you so much for the presentation. It was very insightful. Some great examples there of different brands that have utilized commerce media. So if you stop sharing the presentation,
Yeah.
we'll jump back to the panel discussion, which we can kick off now. So hopefully everyone is very well informed of this. So first obvious question: commerce marketing, is this a term that you guys use within your day-to-day business planning? Who wants to take that one?
Alistair, if the silence lingers too long, I'll take it. But the short answer is no. It's commerce marketing is not a term that we use at AutoTrader, its definition is understandable, but I think there's so many moving parts there that nobody sits back and says, "Oh, I'm doing commerce marketing." Well, no, you're doing PPC, or you're doing content marketing, or you're doing social media marketing, or you're doing one of those. So I suppose, the understanding of commerce marketing is not a term that, I or we use, that you sit back and say, "I'm doing commerce marketing."
Fair enough. Dirk, Ewoudt, anything from your side?
No, I can only agree with what George is saying. What he's saying is absolutely spot on. Although I think we've been utilizing the dynamics of what's implied with commerce marketing extensively, and I'm sure, obviously, George also, everybody's using it extensively in various aspects, but they don't necessarily call it that, and they don't necessarily see it as one single thing.
Yeah, appreciated. I mean, from my side, I think it's not something that's appeared yesterday, and it's not like something that everyone's just started doing. It's just a way of kind of focusing a plan and a strategy to have specific outcomes, these being commerce outcomes. And these, let's say you go back and we were talking about the kind of the shift of AutoTrader from a print publication to a 100% digital business. The outcomes are still the same, but the medium and the mode has changed in that process. So I think there is more focus now with the level of information we have and with the outcome and being able to track the outcome. Anyway, Ewoudt, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, no, perfect, Alistair. Totally agree with what the panelists have said so far. I think, especially in the context of a South African, a local market, I think the commerce media term is probably underused purely just also as a reflection of our market. Because I think for most of our retailers, our traditional retailers, it's either a very focus on e-commerce, right? If you're an online retailer specifically, like a Takealot as an example, or you're still very much in the domain of the physical realm. So if you're sitting in that physical realm and your focus is more on, driving traffic in store, I think that is the reality of a lot of our retailers still in South Africa. So I think that's part of the reason why, just from a semantic perspective, we probably haven't adopted that term e-commerce media. But like Dirk and George has said, yes, if you describe what e-commerce media is, we're all doing that in different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it. And I think naturally, let's say when that term started appearing, it originated as e-commerce media. And it's transitioned very fast into commerce media, because at the end of the day, it's got to respect the business and the brand and the advertiser. And if a large chunk of the sales are physically, then that needs to be respected. But can we tie in these data points? Can we offer a better, more personalized, customized user journey? So Ewoudt, just staying with you for a second then. So I'm just interested in some of the changes in commerce overall since or during COVID. So has your business experienced any of this? I mean, particularly, let's say, in relation to in-store?
Yes, definitely, Alistair. I think I would be very shocked if you asked this question to anyone and they said, no, there wasn't a massive change. No, there's definitely been a massive impact. And I think, for most brands and retailers, the success that they're having today is based on how they reacted initially when COVID hit. And I think a lot of brands, the plans that you've put in place are potentially now starting to bear fruit, hopefully by now already, because if it isn't, then you're a little bit slow in the race potentially. But yes, it's definitely changed shopping behavior. I think something from our side that we've noticed very interestingly enough is not just that, yes, a lot of people have now started shopping online more, and we've seen a growth in e-commerce. but also we've seen a change in overall consumer behavior, even for consumers that are still buying in store, where that whole effect of research online and purchase offline, I think, has become even more increased over the last few years, or the last few months. You've got a lot of customers that will deeply entrench themselves in the research process online, and they might buy online, but a lot of guys are still saying, you know what, actually, I've done all of my research, I know where I want to go, and then I buy the product physically still. And I think for a lot of retailers in South Africa, that presents a big challenge in terms of also tracking the ROI of your commerce media, like you put it, because at the end of the day, can we track their journey to make sure that the person that is actually doing the window shopping online is actually the person then going into the store and buying physically?
Yeah, exactly that, and that's what I think, and that's why I think data is such an important part of this. Transaction data, store data, physical location data. I know there's also changes in, let's say, the privacy ecosystem, but bringing this all together to actually truly appreciate what is the impact. I mean, this is always, you know, since the dawn of time, this is a marketeer's key challenge. It's one of those quotes. I know 50% of my marketing budget is working. I just don't know which 50%. And now I think today we have the tools and the information to, you know, to answer those questions. Dirk, George, from more of an auto perspective, how have your businesses changed in the past, well, 12 to 18 months with respect to COVID, and then how you're communicating with those customers?
I think, Alistair, well, I know, you know, if you watched my presentation earlier, there was a significant shift in consumer behavior. And I think before COVID hit, you know, Ewoudt, I hope I pronounced that right, Ewoudt, but Ewoudt mentioned, you know, research online, purchase offline. In the e-commerce environment, and I can only speak to motor vehicles, you know, some people were researching offline, purchasing online, and then doing more research online, and then going to purchase offline. So that journey isn't linear from research online, purchase offline perspective, and we couldn't see that marked shift more than it hit during the beginning of COVID. So we saw the platform growth significantly and consumer shift in behavior. You know, to the point where we had to almost relearn some consumer search trends because they just changed overnight. And I think it's testament to the fact that the consumers adapt very quickly, and I think they adapt faster than we would like to believe they adapt, and we're all consumers in our own right, and because of that adaptation, the one thing we realized is how fast a consumer adapts, especially in today's online world. And then you know, the other major shift that we saw was on the industry or the supply side, was a shift to this concept called automotive digital retailing, which is kind of an e-commerce type drive, where you take parts of the car shopping journey and you try and digitize it in a way that gives an online experience of what the consumer would have experienced offline inside the car dealership or at the front of the bank's F&I. And trying to digitize that process in a term called automotive digital retailing. Now, for cars, it's a difficult thing to do, but you know, it was happening anyway. I think COVID just accelerated it for car sellers like Dirk's, you know, WeBuyCars, and people had to have a real look at their businesses and say, have I really digitalized and made the digital transformation, you know, quickly enough?
Yeah, 100%. I can only second everything you said. I mean, from my side, I think the key things there is in terms of, let's say, understanding, respecting the consumer. And this is, you know, this is the same, you know, since the dawn of time, is making sure that we understand what that consumer behavior is. And it is unique, and it's not unique per country or per vertical, it's unique per person. And it changes constantly. So it's ensuring that as an industry, we continually adapt and make sure that we're delivering these kind of messages, respecting, you know, what they're looking for. And going back to the first point in terms of kind of commerce marketing, this is kind of the same thing. This is, let's say, a concept that we put over the top, but it's about understanding that kind of behavior and making sure we respond to it. Dirk, from your side?
Alistair, yes. You know, I find conversations like this absolutely fascinating. I have a whole philosophy around conversations. I feel that half of a successful business, in my view, is built on conversations. We should not underestimate the importance of interpersonal conversations, if that makes any sense to you, because conversation keep on evolving and growing. And that conversation sort of contains the essentials that we build the business around. And then you have action and initiative, that pioneership and creativity and innovation that follows from out of the conversations that we are having. So when you mention that we need to respect the customer and, you know, get back to the customer, you know, those are terminologies and phrases and ideas that are as old as money, as old as transactions, as old as the mountains. And we rotate back and forth, you know. So it's like taking a pill if you have a disease or an illness or a problem. Just this morning, I had an incredible headache, and I feel so bad about it. But I reached for the pills, and I took 2 very strong pain pills. And I'm not very fond of pharmaceuticals, but so I reached out and took the 2 pills and bloody well drank them to ease the headache. What I'm trying to say is, solving your problem by taking a pill is not solving the problem. So if you want to solve your customers' problems, you can use a pill, you can use technology. But what we ultimately want to do is to, I wouldn't say prevent, ultimately you want to prevent the problem from occurring. But this is not a real problem, it's just life happening. So what I'm saying is, the absolute ideal situation is to get as close as possible to the customer as we can, in a practical sense of the word. So you have to bear with me a little bit if I'm a little bit philosophical about it. But I've been thinking about this and seeing the scenario play out, and I've heard the patterns and seen the patterns repeat over and over and over. You know, if you're successful in life, people want to know what is your success recipe. You know, but there is no success recipe. It is only a matter of who's reaching the customer, because the customer has the money that's going to buy the product or the service. And at the end of the day, the customers speak to each other, they have a braai, and your reputation takes form or it doesn't. You get repeat purchases or not, you know? So it's so, George, you must please come into the conversation and tell me. There's so many layers and so many aspects to the conversation. It's a hugely complex conversation. It's really hard, you know. Whatever platform and whatever people you're speaking to, the conversation will take that flavor and that perspective and that angle of attack. Yes, sure, wonderful. But that's not necessarily the reality. That's why I really love George's approach, that it is really complex. And at the end of the day, it's about harmony, it's about reciprocity between us, our customers, and our employees. And you know, believing in yourself, believing in your customer, believing in good things, and taking the initiative, making it work, bringing it together. You know,
not losing sight of
young people. Sorry, I'm being leafy, but young people today are fed some sort of story and some sort of philosophy about technology is going to solve all your problems. You know.
So not losing sight of the basics. So if we come back to that, so I'd say how do you encourage your teams and your organizations to, let's say, I mean, we caught the end of the previous presentation, there was a focus on kind of constantly testing and learning and trying. So I'd ask the question, how do you, let's say, lean into these technologies without losing the basics that you mentioned of focus on the customer, of reciprocity, of value?
Yeah, you know, there was a time when I was obsessed with deep learning, and I would say I'm still obsessed with deep learning. And I think maybe someone could correct me, but I think deep learning, as far as I'm concerned, we've been researching it and been going after it for longer than 5 years. But the expectation and the reality is still very, very far apart. That's just one example, just one little example of, where technology is full of promises and fascinating fantasies and ideas, which ultimately doesn't really deliver. At the end of the day, if your mother comes to my business to buy a vehicle, we need to sell her a car. We need to find out what she needs, what she wants. We have to line her expectations up to the reality, and we have to see what's going to be a good fit for her at the very moment, given what's available, given what's her expectation. Those are just normal, practical, everyday realities. What can she afford? What's here right now? What's at a different branch? And bringing all those things together and getting someone to help her who can relate to her and speak to her and that sort of thing. So those are the realities. That's what we are trying to cater for.
So very much customer focused, very much brand centric. So I'm still interested in the technology side of it. Is it something you actively lean into the technology, or?
I think between George and us, we are in a competition to see who can do it better. There's no contest.
I think, I mean, to kind of like put a like slightly different context on what Dirk is saying, you've got to meet the customer on their terms, right? So let's say a car. Let's say my mother walks into WeBuyCars and wants to buy a car. Now, in years gone by, that kind of process in getting to the premises was largely hidden. It was physical in nature and very much hidden. And Dirk had an opportunity to find out what that customer, my mother in this case, wanted when they walked in the front door. Okay. In today's commerce marketing world, we need to meet the customer earlier on in the journey, because that's really what we're talking about, is we've now got visibility of the journey where we never had visibility of the journey before the person walked through the front door. So we've got to meet the customer on their terms earlier on in the journey. Now that's, for me, a kind of a bit of a structure around commerce marketing. So how do you do that? What on the consumer's terms means is if the consumer is on Facebook, right? Why are they there? You've got to meet them there on their terms. You can't slap an ad onto Facebook. It's not going to work. You've got to really be in the mindset of that consumer in that moment while they're there. So they may be on Facebook looking at the latest memes of, a Kardashian, for instance. How do you insert yourself into that process in the consumer's mind? And that's where I think some of the magic lies on different platforms and the reason why, I think you said, Alistair, earlier on, or Joshua said, that is why we all playing to the same game, but we're the nuance is meeting the customer on their terms, and we all do that differently. And therein lies, I think, the context is you've got to insert your communication strategy. You've got to insert your brand. You've got to insert what you want to say contextually different on different platforms. Most people today are still taking a TV ad and putting it across every platform on the internet, thinking that they're going to get conversion and leads. I promise you it's not going to work. Every platform is different. Even when you're on AutoTrader, you're speaking to a different customer. The customer is very close to buying a car on AutoTrader's platform. Very, very close. And whereas if you go onto some other platforms, for instance, if you try and market on Google for car buying consumers, you have to be cognizant of why the customer's there. When they transition from Google to AutoTrader, they've moved lower down into the funnel slightly, and their mindset's different. They're on AutoTrader for cars. They're not on AutoTrader to see a Kardashian meme. So the language is different, and I think that's what, correct me if I'm wrong, Dirk, that's what Dirk's talking about. Is you've got to meet the consumer as a human in the context of their environment at the time, and that's the hard part of commerce marketing.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think there's some really interesting points there. Respect the context and personalized. And I think, like, you know, the key thing about this overall discussion, you know, we can put the marketing terminologies and the frameworks on top of it, but keeping those, you know, those core points at heart are essential. And the only difference now is we have more information, more opportunities to do it. So it's just making sure that we use those signals, that we respect the customer, and we use those signals to make sure they receive, you know, the right message at the right time in the right context. You know, and there's some of the time when, you know, when advertising isn't, you know, let's say, the primary medium, and that's also okay. Evo, anything from your industry, like a different side to it?
Yeah, I just want to add to what George was saying. I can't agree more with those insights. I think one of the practical examples of that in application is content marketing. And I think especially in our industry, if you think about, you know, a very sales-driven industry, which at the end of the day is all industries, right? Is that we're very focused on sales. And you can see that a lot of times in the content, the way we're producing digital content, that it's all about just highlighting product, just highlighting price point. The days of just talking about price and talking about product in isolation of a benefit to the customer, those days are over. So a big thing for me and a big focus for us is our content marketing approach and how, you know, we create content that adds value to the customer's life. So yes, it's doing a product job because it's expanding their understanding of how they can use the product, but we aren't just constantly saying buy, buy, buy. We're really building that relationship with the customer. And I think that aligns very well to what George is saying. You know, especially on your social media channels, if you just go in very strongly with an aggressive sales drive, you're not going to grab the attention. You're not going to be a part of the conversation. So I think for marketers, for digital marketers, that has to be a key focus.
100%. Dirk, I know you need to run off a little bit early, so I'm just going to ask, let's say, the kind of finishing question to yourself, and we'll come back to the guys. We've only got kind of 5 minutes left. So, well, 2 questions. One, how optimistic are you on the future of communications and marketing in South Africa? And the second one is the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity that you see within the communications industry right now.
You give me 2 questions simultaneously. Okay.
How long have we got?
Okay, what was the first one again? You said...
how optimistic are you about communications in South African market?
Look, I think all the opportunity is there, like never ever before. It's so wide and so enormous that it's actually frightening. But the reason why it's frightening is also the reason why you wouldn't maybe succeed as much as you could, is because you've got complete information overload. So it's incredibly difficult to decide, or it's difficult to decide where to focus on what, where, when, why, you know. Never before in human history have we been confronted with the ability to update, inform yourself on any topic you can imagine, like we can today. You can immerse yourself in any topic, and that's the problem. Which one? So so what I'm saying, all I'm saying is just that now is the time for us. The other problem is that you don't have screen time. You have to buy the attention of the client. That's your problem. So commerce marketing is wonderful, but it's astonishingly beautiful and wonderful. It's magic what you can do with it. It's magic. The question is, after you've now attained all that information and you have a whole strategy and a plan, how are you gonna? You need to reach the customer. You have to grab the customer's attention somehow. That's why AutoTrader, we use AutoTrader for that. WeBuyCars advertises extensively on AutoTrader. We do that, you know, to reach the customer because it's a. So that is the challenge. The challenge is between the advertisers and the advertising mediums. There's a challenge there. But you asked me about optimism, about communication, and all I'm saying is that there's endless possibilities there today. It's overly fantastically everything that's available. The question is, we are all competing for the same advertising space. We're all competing for the attention of the same audience. So that is a little bit of a challenge. And I have my views and so on that, which we wouldn't go into right now. What was your second question again, Alistair?
It was the biggest opportunity within the market. I mean, mate, you kind of already answered it already in terms of there is a huge amount of opportunities, kind of prioritizing.
Let me just indulge me a little bit on that one. I think I would like, if you ask me, if you say to me, Dirk, what's the one single message that you have for people before you die or go or whatever, I would say, I think there's really that's what I was trying to say with the thing about using a pill as opposed to solving the real underlying problem. I think there's a market and a demand and a place for integrity and trust and consistency and truthfulness. And that's what I am after. And that is what I would like to believe, that we can change the world for the much better by stop. You need to stop to believe in the pill. You need to start believing in healthy living as opposed to pills. I'm not saying we shouldn't be taking pills. I take pills myself, but I'm after healthy living, you know? And we can bring that into business, guys. We can bring that into business by really, truly adopting a servant leadership attitude and really honestly and truly trying to meet customers' needs. And your employees are also your customers. That's my bottom line. Thank you, Alistair, for the opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you, Dirk. Dirk, I love, by the way, I love that message, you know, bringing it back to basics on a human level and actually kind of focusing on the challenges, the problems, and kind of, you know, beyond, let's say, the terminology. I fully agree. Anyway, as I said, I know you've got to run, Dirk, so fantastic to catch up. Thank you for your time. And we look forward to
everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
George, I'm going to come to yourself. So same questions. How optimistic are you on the future, and what's your biggest challenge or opportunity?
Alistair, I'm probably biased to that question, or biased in that question, in the answer to that question, because I'm a natural optimist. I get up in the morning and rather look at challenges as the glass half full rather than the glass half empty. So it's probably a loaded question for me. I'll answer the question by kind of giving you a story. I'm one of 8. The last time I counted, 8 cousins in my family, and all but 2 of us left South Africa. Okay. And I often have digs at them saying, you got your upbringing in South Africa, you made your start in South Africa, and now you're leaving. What's up with that? Challenges shouldn't be run away from; they should be faced. And I think as a result of where South Africa finds itself, I am hugely optimistic, and one of the reasons I'm hugely optimistic is purely because of what I've seen on the AutoTrader platform and how consumers behave and how resilient South Africans are. And then my second part to kind of answering the optimism question is the one thing that I think is a real future trajectory of South Africa is the fact that the first world countries find themselves in a very tough spot in their economies, and South Africa's just out of the starting gates. We've got a bright future where I think a lot of, if we sort out our infrastructure and other issues, we've got a bright future, because those countries are going to need skills, and those skills are going to come, I think, from Africa in the future.
100%. Thank you, George. And again, I love the idea. I love the idea of leaning into a challenge. And I think, you know, it's fantastic to speak to everyone today. And I can see in terms of the businesses, 100%, you know, you guys are. Ewoudt, I know we're right on time. So, you know, optimism for the future and a challenge or opportunity.
Perfect, Alistair. Yeah, definitely also share the sentiment, very optimistic for the future. But I think what George said really also resonated with me in terms of skill set and talent. I think something to add on my side and something that I've seen in the industry as well, also in my capacity as a digital marketing lecturer across quite a few institutions locally, is that I've noticed quite a gap in our skill set when it comes to digital marketing specifically. I think, you know, if you look at our agency landscape, we've got amazing creative agencies, fantastic, you know, the type of creative work, the type of creatives and the type of work that they deliver really touches and tackles the zeitgeist of our nation. And we're getting some amazing work out there. But I do worry that our technical digital marketing skill sets are lacking. And it feels almost, you know, the way that digital marketing is perceived in the country, and this might also be a broader global issue, is that it is very focused on the content side. It's very focused on the messaging side. But I do feel we do lack more technical, analytical minded skill set people that want to come into the industry. And I think, for example, Criteo as an example, you know, helps us fill that gap from a technology perspective. But without, you know, the right type of resources that can analyze and process that data and work together to build a cohesive strategy, there is a gap. You know, those resources do exist, but you have to work very hard to find them. So I would say, for me, very optimistic, but I do think that that's one of our biggest challenges.
Amazing.
Alistair, if we've got a minute, you know, Ewoudt touches on a very interesting kind of a concept, and that is skills. Digital marketing, while we've got all the technology available to us and all of that, you know, the magic in the bits and bytes that we interact with, digital marketing is actually a human capital business. The decisions that have to be made in marketing your product or marketing your content, a machine can't really make to the nth degree. So Ewout's absolutely right, and I think, Ewoudt, the answer to the question, and you know, whether I'm right or wrong, you know, time will tell, but I think the answer to the question is all of those skills that left, my cousins, when they come back, that's when South Africa is going to see those first world skills really help our country move forward.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you both. Sorry, Walt, please.
No, well said. I think it's very interesting. I think you're very much right, but I think it would also be great to see, you know, with the talent that we've got and the guys that are willing to stay, you know, as digital leaders as well, what can we do to mentor and support? But I think you're right. That's a very good point. I would love to see what we can do to get those guys back there. I don't know if you've got any insights on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work to do. So it's not like it's one or the other. The guys that are here are skilled enough, but there's a volume in the resource problem, and you know, and I think that like. Real, true people that understand the technicalities of digital marketing and digital commerce, you battle to find them in South Africa, and when you do, you got to hang on to them. So it's a volume problem. It's not like we don't have the skills. I mean, Ewout's sitting here, you guys are sitting here, and there's many people on the conference that are here from South Africa. So it's really just a volume problem. The guys must just come back.
There we go. Well, I think, you know, I think that's a really nice point to end on. I would say, you know, all of these gaps are actually, you know, opportunities at the same time, and it's up to us, or it's up to, you know, the people to fill it. It's, you know, for the brave, etc. So anyway, a big thank you to Walt, Joshua, George, Dirk, he's already left, but a huge thank you. Touched on philosophy, communications, South Africa, and everything in between. So I think there's a very bright future. I really appreciate the conversation and the prior conversations as well. So great to have this conversation. Adam, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Sure. Thank you. A big thank you to all the panelists. Alistair, I would want to hand over one question to you. We have a question from the audience, Jennifer. She asks, what are the ethical considerations when collecting consumer data and especially purchase data?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question again?
Yeah, sure. What are the ethical considerations when collecting consumer data and especially purchase data?
So, I mean, again, how long have we got? I'll give you a short answer, and Jennifer, you know, let's find out how we can get in touch and we can kind of discuss this in more detail. I think there's been huge developments in the world of privacy with online communications. We've got GDPR, touching European citizens. We've got California Consumer Protection Act, focusing very much on California. I think these, for me, are, let's say, the drivers in the future in this area. So the question is about what was around. Sorry, I've forgotten what the question was. The question was around. Adam, can you help me?
Yeah, sure. So just the ethical considerations in collecting consumer data.
I think, well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a value exchange, and the question is actually, is it easy for the consumer to understand what they are offering? So when we click accept all, do we truly understand it? And if you look at things like GDPR or CCPA, where I started this conversation, this is exactly what these things are set out to do. So make sure there is clear understanding when the consumer exchanges this data, then they are understanding what they do. So the question is, like, in terms of the future, what are they willing to do, and are they willing to change it? So I think it's really a question for the industry, really, and making sure that there is a fair value of exchange and fair communication, so people are understanding when they commit their data and information that they get value, and that is in terms of in terms of funding the content on the websites, making sure they have personalized communication with the advertisers, etc. George, you wanted to chip in there?
Yeah, I mean, Alistair, I think we all can agree that your data has become the product. That is really what we're talking about here. Your data has become the product as a consumer, and I think Apple does this quite well, and that is let the consumer decide. If we try and regulate it too much, we will go backwards and rather than forwards. So we've got to find a middle ground, I think, to let the consumer decide. What data do I want to give up? What are you going to do with it? And let me decide what that looks like, rather than letting it be too regulated and too onerous and cumbersome. So I think we haven't reached that middle ground. Some companies have gone too far with using people's data inappropriately, and I like what Steve Jobs says: is ask the consumer, ask them again, and ask them again.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, we have to, Adam, this needs to be a future topic of conversation, because I think it's a huge amount of debate around it, and it's a very interesting topic.
Cool, thank you. Jennifer, I hope that answers your question. Again, a big thank you to the panelists. We're going into a networking break for the next 30 minutes. So in the meeting networking zone, you can view and filter the list of registered attendees by name and company, and invite those delegates for one-on-one chats or video meetings. So I'm sure a lot of the speakers and sponsors will be registered as attendees, and I'm sure you can connect with them in this zone. So please make use of this time. If you need any help, the help desk is available. Our team is ready to help you. Thank you.